Together today, we unpack the heart-tugging journey of releasing our adult children emotionally, spiritually, and practically. Why is it so hard, even when our kids are capable? What are the hidden griefs we don't talk about as moms and dads when they begin to stand on their own? In this episode, we explore the emotional weight of this transition, how to strike the balance between support and freedom, and how to release control without losing connection. If you've ever wrestled with the fear, the loss of what now, that comes when your child steps into independence, this conversation is for you. Welcome to Warfare Parenting, faith-driven strategies for struggling parents of teens and adult children. I'm your host, Lane Lawson Craft. You're in the right place if you're battling with prodigal children, facing family crises, or seeking spiritual guidance in parenting. Today, we'll equip you with powerful biblical strategies to reclaim your child's destiny and restore hope in your family. Let's step into this faith-filled journey of hope and healing together. Kathy Cunningham, I'm so excited you're back with us today. We have just had a wonderful time in this series, just really talking about the pain points that we don't talk a lot about. Thank you for coming in today. You know, you've been doing this 30 plus years. You've been doing this as a ministry and as a coach. And, it is just so important that we bring a voice to these negative pain points. And you've been so wonderful to give us your valuable time. Thank you so much for helping us.
Oh, you're welcome, Lane. Again, this is such a passion for me because I just see so many people that feel alone in this journey right now. And just to know you're not alone is the first step. But this one subject we're going to be talking about today is huge.
It is. I'm just going to get right into it. Why
Okay.
is letting go of an
Mm-hmm.
adult child such
Mm-hmm.
a significant challenge for so many parents,
Yeah.
even after their children have demonstrated that they're capable of being independent?
Yeah, I think when we think about it, it makes so much sense because we pour our whole life into this child for years and years, usually at least 18, if not more. I mean, everything we do, everything we think is usually somewhat around these children, right? So when they begin to get independent, first of all, we were the main person. We're not the main person anymore. That was for many people, even if you have other things and you're working outside the home, motherhood or being a mom is often a big part of your purpose. And suddenly you're feeling that you're losing that purpose. And, I think it's probably for some of us a little bit of loss of control. And then there's the aspect of closeness. Like if a fear starts to rise up, are we still going to be close? Are we still going to be connected? So many, many facets of what's going on here.
There, and those are all very emotional.
Oh,
How,
absolutely. Yeah.
yes. How can parents strike a balance
Mhm.
between letting
Yeah.
go and maintaining a supportive, loving relationship with their adult children? That's a hard balance, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's the hardest one that I see. And it's often what causes the parent and the adult child problems because it's very hard for parents to find this balance. And the balance is going from being an authority to just being an influence or being a guider, whatever they need. But you're not the authority. You're not the main person. You're not driving their life anymore. And we've done that for all these years. So I think that is the hardest part of finding that balance. Like, how do I support? Because we still support. We're still a mom. We're still a parent, but it looks different now. So how do I do that in the right way for an adult?
Well, that leads me into what does a successful launch into adulthood look
Yeah.
like? I mean,
hmm
both for the child and for us.
Yes. Uh-huh. And I think again, this has become a different scenario than in previous generations because we do have a generation of parents for various reasons that have probably done too much for their children. So what does a successful launch looks like? It looks like you have an adult child that is truly becoming an adult. Now, not at 18. I'm not saying that, but you're seeing more and more of them gaining independence in all areas of their life, financially, emotionally, even spiritually. You are not taking responsibility for their life decisions. They are. And that's a process that starts, usually in high school, probably a little bit before then, even with a little bit of letting go. But as they are moving into their 20s, this should be happening pretty rapidly at some point. And it's not happening as much in our society right now. And it's causing a lot of problems.
Well, is it true, Kathy, that we have more children that are in their 30s living with parents than ever before?
Yes, it is true.
That
Yes,
is,
all the ages of everything has advanced up into late 20s and early 30s, whether it's living on your own, getting married, taking on more responsibility, being financially on your own completely without parents' help. All those things have moved from being early 20s years ago up to late 20s to 30s. And, I do want to say, I know that in our world right now, it's hard because of economics. So
yes.
some of that makes some sense, but you still need to make sure that they are living a adult life with responsibility of their own, not being taken care of when they're 32 years old, living at home, you're still doing their wash.
Well, look, what are the signs that a parent's difficulty letting go
Yeah.
is negatively impacting their children uh, to be able to be independent, fully
Hmm.
independent? I mean, what are those signs?
Well, one of them is that they're not taking responsibility for things that normal adults should take responsibility for. And some things that really we don't, I think parents nowadays don't even think of the problem. But if you really think about it, it's a problem if you're still making their appointments for them and they're 23 years old or maybe even 20. They should be picking up the phone, making their own appointments. They should be taking care of themselves. If they live at home, they should be responsible for health just like every other adult. They should probably at some point be financially helping. So they are more and more, as they are climbing that ladder of adulthood, becoming more and more independent emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And they are also becoming mature in their reactions and the way that they do things in life.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I want to ask you, I'm finding in my mission with these moms that a lot of our children are just so immature, Kathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or at least that's what we tell ourselves. Is you understand what I'm saying? And we say, oh, they're just not ready yet. Or maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
presenting a case that they're really not ready. What are your thoughts on that?
I really, and I want to be really careful how I say this because I know we just, on one of our other podcasts, we talk about mom guilt. I don't want to feed into that. So this isn't about guilt, blame. It's about awareness. We need to start being able to have conversations and say, I'm not going to feel guilty about this. I'm going to be aware and I'm going to do something different. But we live in a society. So a lot of it's a societal norm that we have taken care of our children too well. And so they have lacked learning, growing in maturity, emotionally, and even spiritually. But in that emotional growth, they're delayed somewhat because they haven't had to do the hard things. What makes us grow emotionally? Having to go through hard things. And I'm not talking traumatic things. I'm not saying unsafe things. I'm saying just navigating, life, a job, or having to figure out how do I get from here to there? And how do I navigate a hard relationship or a hard conversation without someone coming in and rescuing me? But that's what parents are doing nowadays. They're coming in and fixing and rescuing people way into their I want to say even 30s and 40s, sometimes.
Yes,
But we shouldn't
yes.
even be doing that in the early, 20s and late teens. We should begin as parents to let them work through stuff and build that confidence in themselves that they can do more.
Yes. Well, what are some practical steps that parents can take to gradually let go and support
Mhm.
their child's independence in a healthy way? What are some steps?
Well, if you have already been sort of over parenting, maybe even to the point of enabling your child, and they're an adult, you don't want to suddenly pull back and you're on your own now. That's not fair. So you take small steps. So, like I said, things that just seem very simple, they make their own appointments. They get to their appointment. They manage their own finances and they handle their interpersonal problems. Now, that doesn't mean they can't ask for advice. And it doesn't mean that if they haven't been doing it, they might need a little bit of instruction. You support, you help. This is the thing that I always tell people, and this is whether you have an adult child that's struggling or not. When do we come in and help? If it is something they absolutely cannot do on their own, if they have the capability of doing it on their own, they should be doing it.
Amen. That is so good, Kathy. Really, that is just so practical, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes, it
Just so
is.
practical.
But it's
Okay,
so
I've got
hard
how
too for some
it is
parents.
hard. It's very hard. We are
Yeah,
not
yeah.
minimizing that part. No,
Yes,
we aren't.
yeah. Mhm.
How can parents communicate trust and respect for their adult children's decisions, even when they disagree with the
Yeah.
choices? I find that probably one of my big hurdles is
Yes. Yes.
watching my adult children make some choices that I probably wish they hadn't have. But how do you temper that?
Yeah. To keep connection, to keep relationship, we cannot expect our adult children, if they're adults and they're completely financially, independent, they have a right, just like we did, to make their own decisions, whether they're what we would choose or not. And we have to take that stance. And we don't have to agree. We don't have to compromise our values to do that. But what we do want to have is some verbiage and let them know, because they know I don't 100% agree with this, but I love you and I respect your right as an adult to make choices. Now, I'm not talking about something that is harmful. There are cases where you have to come in and intervene. We know that addiction, mental health issues. That's a whole different subject. And we're not talking about that right now. We're just talking about normal adult parent relationships. We have to let them be adults, just like our parents had to let us be adults. And I'm sure there was many things they didn't agree with either, but they did it better because I don't know about you, but my parents were like, yeah, you're on your
Mine too.
own.
Yes. Well, I do want to talk about the other side because I have experienced these emotions and they're normal,
Yeah.
but there's sometimes that they get unmanaged. And that
Yeah.
is, how can we cope with the feelings of loss,
Mm.
emptiness, or diminished sense of purpose as our children become independent? How do we deal with those emotions?
I think the first thing we have to realize, and we don't talk about this, that when our children become adults, and this is even 17, 18, we're beginning to, because they start pulling away, and that's normal and they should. We don't want them to be dependent on us, but it creates a sense of loss. So understand you are grieving. You are going through a grieving process, and you need to acknowledge that and you need to work through it. Any loss that we have in life, we have to work through those emotions, and those emotions are real. And sometimes they feel like sadness, sometimes they feel like anger. Sometimes they just feel like almost like, bargaining, like, I'm going to pull them back. I don't want them to go, but I do want them to go, So I guess I just want to normalize all that because we all feel it and that's normal. The second thing is, and I've said this over and over again, we need to have other like minded people, other people going through that season around us. And even some people that have been there, like us, we can speak to those young women in their 40s, maybe even 50s, that are a little bit younger than us. And they're just beginning, and we've been there, and we can help them navigate this season in a better way. And of course, always, giving it to God, trusting Him. Maybe it's a time of, leaning into your relationship with God a little bit more than you have in the past. I found that was necessary for me.
Well, there's also that feeling that you've lost your identity.
Yes. Yeah.
They struggle with a new
Mm-hmm.
identity when their children
Mm-hmm.
leave home. How can we create, a new identity once our children are gone and are very capable and are independent and doing well.
Yeah. I think we have to refine ourselves, honestly, because for many people, and maybe that's again a part of what we have, not done quite as well as the previous generation. We've been so involved with our children that our whole identity was wrapped up in them more so than other generations. So we have to refine ourselves. So we begin to figure out, what do I enjoy doing? Do I want to travel more? Do I want to pick up some hobbies? Do I need new friendships, or do I just want to go out with the girls more? Or if you're married, this is a hard time for marriage. That's another whole subject for another day. But often we focus so much on the children, we haven't focused on each other. And so we almost have to refine our relationship again. So taking time and effort to do those things, that'll fill up your time.
Yes, it will. It definitely
Yeah.
will. And that's
Hmm.
interesting you should say that because I think, I never dreamed I'd see parents divorcing at our ages. But see, what happens is these parents or these moms, pour their whole life in these
Yep.
kids and not the marriage. And then the kids leave and there's nothing left, that
Absolutely.
that relationship. So we will address that in a future episode because I think
Yes.
that's very important.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let's go back to this letting go with our adult
Hmm.
children. What are some common misconceptions about letting go of our adult children that you've encountered?
I think it makes people feel like they don't matter anymore. Like you're the has been, just stay off to the side. Your opinion, nothing about you matters. You did your part, move on. That nothing could be further from the truth. Most, and of course there's always exceptions, but most adult children, they still need their mom. They still need that input. They just need it differently. And if you can figure that out and you can work on yourself and you can have your own life, but still be that supportive person in their life, you're going to have an amazing relationship. I love it and there was a time when my kids would not call me for advice because they knew I was going to try to control everything. Now I can, say I have advanced into my kids calling me and saying, "Hey, mom, could you give me some thoughts on this?" Those are some of my best days. I mean, I'll admit I still love that. It's not all
I
the
do too.
time, but I love that they feel that I'm a safe space and I'm just going to give them guidance. I'm not going to tell them what to do because I've learned to do that. So I think that's really what we need to understand. We're not out of the picture anymore. We're actually a more important part than we've ever been because we
Ever
want to be a
been.
safe space for them.
So good, Kathy. So good. Let me ask you, what are some signs if a listener or viewer is
Mhm.
is struggling, am I having problems with this? What are some signs that they are in fact having problems in letting go?
The interesting thing that people don't realize is if we're holding on too tightly to our adult children, it has an opposite effect. The more we help them as they become adults, the more they begin to resent us, which sounds weird because you'd say, well, if I'm helping them financially, I'm doing all these things for them. But if it's over helping, one thing they begin to feel like, you don't even believe in me. You don't even believe I can do these things. And God gave us this need to become independent, to be an adult at a certain point. We see that in the Word of God. So there's going to be more of a pulling away if we don't correct those things. So we need to start with an acknowledgement and sometimes we just have to say, I am so sorry that I've been treating you like a child. You're an adult. And let's try to kind of reform, this relationship in a little bit different way. And I'm going to do my part and I'm going to let you do your part. And I want to do better.
Well, and I think you touched on that's a great way to start the gradual. If you felt
Yes.
like you have gone way too far
Hmm.
and not letting them go, that's a natural gradual way, right? To
Yes.
let go.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
That is so great. Now, Kathy, we both know that sometimes it's harder. We can't just do it on our own.
Yes.
Sometimes we feel like there were seasons in my life when my kids were prodigals that I probably enabled and I shouldn't have. But
Yes.
if there's a mom or grandmama today that they realize I have this is not a healthy
Yes.
balance that I've acquired with my adult child. You have got some new things for a mom or grandmom or
Yes.
someone that is struggling on just being their best. Can you go into what you offer now?
Yes, I just recently, and this has just been a passion in my life to help parents really navigate this on their part. There's a lot of resources out there for adult children. They're mostly negative. A lot of them are. I haven't seen anything where they're helping them, really navigate this in a positive, Christ-filled way. And I'm on the other side. So I'm really trying to help parents that no matter what's going on with their adult children, they're growing in maturity. They're growing in their emotional resilience. They're getting good tools on how do I navigate this to bring connection, not just repair. And so I have a membership site that I just opened for parents of adult children, and that's what we're learning in there. We have live Q&As, live teaching, we have workshops, and we have a community. So that would be a great place. But I also want to say, if that's not something you feel you can do, there are great support groups out there also for parents of adults. And some of them are along the lines of whatever your struggle is, for either if you have a child with addiction, if you have a child with a mental health issue, they have support groups out there. That is the main thing. You need to be in community and just being able to share, and you get ideas to be able to walk through this in a healthy way.
Well, what I love about it, Kathy, you and I both know
Hmm.
you do get isolated and you do
Yes.
feel like you're going through it alone. And so not only are you giving them the resources and tools from your years and years of expertise, but you are creating a safe community, aren't you? That you
Hmm.
can come in and say, I am struggling with this or that, right?
Absolutely. You can look at my Instagram page. It's at Kathy Cunningham 717. And even just on there, I have lots of tools. But if you join the membership, then you're going to have more interaction, that you can just speak and connect with other people in the same situation that you're in.
That is so great, Kathy. And I just want to remind you that letting go doesn't mean letting down. It means leaning into a new kind of love. As Kathy reminded us, this season is not the end of your parenting. It's the transformation of it.
Mhm.
We're not called to control our adult children, but to champion them, even from a distance. If you're grieving the shift or feeling stuck in old dynamics, know this: you're not alone and you're not failing. You're growing too, whether it's setting healthy boundaries, having honest conversations, or getting the support you need. There's hope, healing, and purpose on the other side of letting go. Keep trusting God, keep showing up with grace, and remember your role may change, but your impact doesn't have to. Kathy, thank you again for your valuable time and your expert, just the way you've delivered all of this. I know so many mamas will benefit from this letting go, and I know many of them will want to connect with you. Would you remind us of that Instagram account where they can find out more about your community and all that you've created?
Yes, it's at Kathy Cunningham 717. Thank you, Lane. It's been a privilege to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Oh, yes. And we'll have all that in the show notes. Just remember, warfare parenting,
Yeah.
faith driven strategies for struggling parents of teen and adult children. We're so glad you're here, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you for joining us on Warfare Parenting. Remember, you can overcome even the most challenging parenting battles with faith and the right strategies. If this episode has touched your heart or provided valuable insights, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support helps other struggling parents find the hope and guidance they need. Until next time, remain steadfast in faith and remember, together we never give up on our families. Visit my website too for my new book, Warfare Parenting, a daily battle plan to fight for your child. The first 10 days are free on my website and many other free resources. Go to lanelawsoncraft.com.